Hello, and welcome to Impacting the Classroom from Teachstone. If you're new to the podcast, we talk about all the policies, research, and challenges that are impacting early childhood classrooms. I'm your host, Marnetta Larimer. Today, we are also launching a special bonus episode live from Interact. Stay tuned for other exciting updates and for ways that you can be involved in the Impacting the Classroom community. So, what's impacting the classroom? In the midst of a shortage of educators, plenty of people are still stepping into roles in early childhood education. We want to talk about why people are still excited to be educators and why people are joining the field. Joining me today is Deborah Covard, early childhood education instructor and early learning lab director at Cooper City High School with Broward County Public Schools. Hello, Deborah.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So tell me and our guests a little bit about your time in education.
Well, I started teaching in the year 2003, so it's been 20 years. I started out teaching kindergarten. I taught kindergarten for about 13 years, went in and bumped up to second grade for a couple years and then took the plunge. And now I'm teaching high school. I'm teaching early childhood education at a high school level. I run an on-site preschool and teach my high schoolers how to be preschool teachers. They all get their industry certification here in the state of Florida, as well as their National Child Development Associate credentials. So our program is a program where we're taking kids from high school and making sure that they're career ready when they leave and graduate.
That's quite a transition from kindergarten, like beautiful faces, and now you're in high school. You've got the high schoolers and the littles all together. How do you, I have so many questions. How do you get them excited about working with you, or do they already come excited, and what excites them?
I think that the great thing about our school, just in general, is that we provide a lot of pathways for the children. So, or the high school students. And so we have options for them. The great thing about my program in particular is that there is a hands-on component. So when they come into the classroom, it's not all like your typical classroom in a high school where you're lecturing, we're taking notes, we're taking tests. It's very, very hands-on, whether you're with me or you're in our early learning lab. So that kind of entices them, because when you're learning something and you're able to do something hands-on, you're able to see things happen right there in front of you. There's more buy-in. Our preschoolers that we have on campus are like our gems. They're so sweet. You can like the relationships that they build and things like that. I think that entices them. It's a little bit of a non-traditional classroom, but they get a lot out of it.
That's beautiful. So what are some of the challenges that they come to you with around this type of work?
I think realistically, the challenges just in general in any high school or school in general right now is getting them motivated, getting them to come to school prepared, ready, willing to learn, wanting to be there, and sustaining that. So my program is a 4-year program. You have to be dedicated to do that. When I say 4 years, it's 4 classes. We double up a couple classes so that they're able to kind of finish and not necessarily drag it out from freshman year to senior year. But it is a process. So I have to sell it to them, and you do that in a variety of ways. One of the ways is that they do leave with their industry certification. So that's desirable to them. They leave with skills. They're employable. But I also, again, the preschool sells it. And I think that as a teacher, you have to bring it. You have to bring the energy. You just have to be different. And so I think that for me personally, that's my strength. You have to also build relationships with the kids. They know, any child is going to know whether you like them or not. And kids will do things for you and they will show up and be there if they know that you like them and that you want them to be there. So I try to make sure that all my kids know that, they feel it. And I think I do a good job at that.
Wonderful. Yeah, that motivation, high school is a sticky time, coming into your own, right? And I especially remember, when you're a sophomore, it's just like, 2 more years, and just like, it's just one day at a time, right? And so I imagine the challenge of motivating them to come and, getting them excited about something. But what a great thing to leave with something, a ready skill that can help them to
Absolutely.
enter right in to the workforce. So how do you help them or encourage them? Why would an educator or a young person join this workforce, the educator workforce?
I think that you can see things happen. It's very rewarding to see little ones or any children kind of come in at a certain level or ability. And then by the end of the year, you see so much growth and you just know, I did that, be it academically or behaviorally or just any of those things. I get that from our preschoolers. I get it out of my high schoolers too. It doesn't matter. I always tell my children or my high schoolers, everything that I teach you here that we do with our little ones, it pertains to you too. So I try to make those connections, but that growth and just you seeing that, I think is motivating for them.
Have you had a lot of success with them sticking to this field of work?
Yes and no. So I would say not everybody goes and says, I'm going to be a teacher. Maybe they won't be a teacher, but they want to work with kids in some capacity. And even those that say, well, I don't know if I want to work with kids. I mean, you're in high school, you're 15, 16 years old. Who knows that is their destiny? I know I jumped from thought process to where am I going to land when I was in high school? So I always say to them, you may not leave here thinking I'm going to be a teacher, but you will work with children in some capacity, pretty much no matter what job you choose to be in. Even if you choose to just stay home, if you want to be a mom, you're going to be working, you're going to literally be with them 24/7. So, but any job that you choose, you're going to work with them. So there's benefit there to taking this program. And my students, they go on, they're pediatricians, they're speech pathologists, they're teachers, they're, pediatric nurses. They've been messaging me recently and just kind of updating me on what they're doing. And then I have students who tell me, this is not for me. I am not going to be a teacher. I, love everything that you represent and I love kids, but there's no way I can do this. And then guess what? I get the phone call or the email 2 years later. Oh, Miss Covard, can you please write me a recommendation letter? I changed my major. I'm going to be a teacher, or I'm going to be subbing while I'm in school so I can you don't know. So I like the fact that this kind of opens a door for them. And then when they go to college, I always tell them, you're going to find your way. You're going to take a class and it's going to remind you of me. You're going to think of me and you may change your mind. So I think, a lot of my kids, they leave and they go and work with kids in some capacity. They don't all become teachers, but they're all going to understand it. Hopefully they'll be advocates and when they see things going on in our world, they're going to understand why these things are important and why we need to advocate for kids and for education. If I only get that, then that to me is a win.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you for the work that you're doing with those students and helping them to be great stewards, right, of the resources and the skills that you've given them with the children that they're supporting. Outside of your students, why else should someone join the educator workforce? What would you say to them?
Man, I would, we just need good people. This is our future. I mean, that's the bottom line. We need people that are passionate about making the world a better place. And you start with our youth. If not for something so simple as that, gosh, we need it. So I think, I think about it, and even just like not even with like within like teaching, people think of education as like just academics, and there's
Right.
so much more to it than that. These kids need mentors. They need to be around people who love them and care about them and can be a role model for them and can, hopefully teach them something so that they can be smart and move on and make, that's why we have to do it. And, I think high school in general, sometimes they get a bad rap, high schoolers, they just do. That's how it is. But I always tell them, like, they are so amazing if you listen to them and you care about them and you talk to them. They're awesome. So we need to have people that are willing to take a chance and like just build a better future, really, because at the end of the day, that's what we have. What are we going to do?
Yeah, they're just asking for what anybody would ask for. Like, I'd want you to listen to me, right? Care about me.
It's so simple.
Right?
It's literally so simple, and it can be challenging, but like anyone that you meet on the street, like anybody can be challenging. So yeah, like we just need to really think about that, because as we know, the world is changing. And so we definitely need people that are passionate, that care about kids, to make sure that things kind of get better, because right now they're not so great all the time.
You were saying a lot in that last statement. And one of the things that really stuck out, that I want to remind the audience is, yes, our children need those mentors, and they need people like them in those classrooms, right? That represent them. They need to see the men in the classrooms, right? To let them know that this is a space that I can occupy, right? And it's a non-traditional role, and they need people of color in the classroom so that they, feel understood and their communities are represented. So it's, yes, mentorship, but also, making sure that our children have access to people that really can have a really large impact on their lives.
Absolutely. And I think that also, people come from different backgrounds, different things that are going on outside of the classroom, and they don't necessarily have people that they can talk to that they feel comfortable talking to. And it's not that they're coming from like a bad home or anything like that, but what you want to say to what you can say to your mother, for example, or can't say to your mother, you can perhaps hash it out with somebody else because you don't necessarily feel comfortable doing that. And sometimes they just need somebody to listen. Like, I just think about some of the things that the kids talk to me about, and it's not anything terrible, but your mom's going to give you different advice than somebody who is neutral in your life, right? So just having that person. I remember when I was younger, there were things like I would never talk to my mother about, right? But like my best friend's mom, she knew it all. So it's just having that person to be able to do that. I think that's important.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that would be a great trait for an educator in the classroom, right? To create this safe space where children could express themselves freely and know that there was no judgment and they could just live their authentic selves in that space. That would be incredible. And a lot of that is happening, as we speak. So, question. Do the parents of the preschoolers interact with the high school students, right? So you have the high school students and the preschoolers creating this like great chemistry, having these relationships. What about the parents of those high schoolers?
Of the high school, the preschoolers, you mean, right? The parents
yes,
of
yes, the parents of the
So
preschoolers.
our parents, first and foremost, our parents are amazing. Like, I always tell my high schoolers, these parents are coming into a high school and dropping their babies, many of which, like, this is their first experience of school, and they're entrusting their whole world in our care. And my kids take it very, very seriously. And there are opportunities. We do family events where the parents are involved and that my high schoolers actually they plan it, they put it all together and they do the whole thing. And the families are invited to come in. So that's like one example of that. We do, like, for example, in December, we have a huge event it's our Winter Fest event. And my high schoolers have, the task of they have to create different winter themed, hands-on activities that are developmentally appropriate for our preschoolers. We have Santa come on a fire truck. So he comes in, everybody's dressed accordingly. The parents come, we do breakfast. It's like a big event. It's casual, not super structured, but my high schoolers are there. They're running the show. So they're talking to the parents. They get to play with the kids, share stories, and build relationships with them. And then also before school and after school, I'm super fortunate that my high schoolers, they volunteer in our preschool. So a lot of my kids are there every single day on their own accord. And when the parents come in, they talk to them. Some of them babysit for them. So there's a lot of interaction and opportunity for interaction for them. And they just love it. So I do get a lot of really positive feedback with that.
I love that. What is the age range, right? Preschool, because preschool, depending on where you are, could be different. What is the age range of the children?
So the students in our preschool are ages 3 to 5. They're 3 by on or before September 1st of that year. So they have to be 3 by then. And, some of them are 5 because of their birthday. So they'll go on to kindergarten at 5 years old. So most of them stay with us for 2 years.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I loved hearing about Winterfest, and that kind of leads me into my next question. How do you help the high schoolers to understand the importance of family engagement?
Oh, that's like a whole lesson. So we build that up within our curriculum. So that's like a whole lesson and, many lessons throughout the year. And then we infuse those family events within it. So we talk about it. We have all kinds of lessons with that. And the cool thing is that, like I said, because it's a hands-on class, we might be teaching a lesson on family engagement and how to get parents and families within, to come and participate in events. And then their thing is, we're going to put on a family event. And then we have, that reflection piece with that. So that's the cool thing is everything happens very organically and they can see what the impact that has, and then we also do, I'll send home a family questionnaire and have the parents rate us on what they think, are our strengths, our weaknesses, things like that. And then we reflect on that. And then we talk about how can we improve in these areas? Because if they're seeing certain things, then maybe we need to show them that these are the things that we're doing. And then we implement it. So you get to see it all in real time. So it's super cool.
That is awesome. I asked you about some of the challenges that the high schoolers might have with this type of environment, right, or work, but I didn't ask you about any challenges you might have, right? So what challenges come up for you in managing both high schoolers and preschoolers at the same time?
It's a challenge, but it's the kind of thing that it's very, very busy. I am super, super fortunate that I have 2 amazing job coaches, adults that work in the preschool. So the way that my classroom is set up, I have my high school classroom, and then we have a fully functioning preschool. It's attached with a doorway and a observation window. So my job coaches, they're in the preschool the whole time coaching my high schoolers. They are without them, it would be difficult. I know that in other similar programs throughout the country, they don't necessarily have that. Everything is in one room. And I I give them a lot of kudos. But that being said, it's hard. So just managing everything in general can be a challenge. My classroom is not set up in a way where I'm like the sage on the stage. I'm sitting there talking and everybody's taking notes. Kids are organized in groups. So we set up teaching groups. While one group is in the preschool, I have another group. They're working on lesson planning for the next time they go into the lab. Then I have another group working on their portfolios and another group working on our next family event and all the things that go in with that. So I have to manage all of them, make sure that everything's getting done, make sure that the kids are going into the lab and they're prepared and they're ready to go, making sure that families are happy, parents are happy, the whole budgeting of the preschool, like I do all of that too. I manage it all. It's super challenging, but it's like a well-oiled machine. When things are working good, or working well, they flow. But then anybody who teaches high school knows that things, schedule changes like this, so I might have everything set up and then, we're testing. I need to pull these kids. I need to do this. I need to do that. The schedule is like extended. And so then I have to pivot. And the preschoolers, they don't know any better because their day just continues on. So thankfully I do have my job coaches, but that part can be a challenge because the high school in general, the whole high school runs as it needs to run. And we're just one little section of that. So we have to really be able to accommodate the schedules and field trips, and sports and things like that. So
do your students eat in the classroom or do they join the high school students in the cafeteria, but in a certain space?
No. So some schools do that, but we have a very large school. So we have our high school is 2,400 students. It's not the largest in our county, but I think it's a pretty large number of students. That would make me nervous, bringing them into the cafeteria. So we eat in the classroom. My high schoolers, that they go to lunch after we put our kids down for a nap. So thankfully I have amazing administrators that, take into account the fact that I have to kind of accommodate our preschoolers and we need the girls in there and boys to assist us. So they go in and they sit with the kids during snack and lunch, and they assist in that when they have their lunch. But then when the bell rings, they then go to lunch. So they're definitely not going to the cafeteria.
Remind me to tell you a story one time.
It wasn't a far walk. It's not like if it was close, right next to it, I would entertain the idea. Mm-hmm. But I like to keep also, they're 3 to 5 year olds. They're not 16, 17, 18 year olds. And the kids that are in my program, they would, they're appropriate. Kids that are not in my program, they might do things and say things that are appropriate for 16, 17, and 18 year olds, but not appropriate for 3 to 5 year olds. So I try to make sure that it's a developmentally appropriate experience for everyone.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So in that statement, there's a couple of things that stuck out to me. First you mentioned this, glass partition, right? And the first thing I thought about was observation, right? Because I went to a lab school as a private lab school when I was first started high school, and I just remember, right, there was always people back there watching to see what we were doing or whatever. Yeah. But you also said, well, machines, which brings me into, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about class, right? So, do you get observed with class, and have you taught the high schoolers anything about class and those interactions?
I haven't. So we don't get observed by class, which I would, I think it's important. It's kind of been on my radar to have my high schoolers be, exposed to that and learn about that. But we don't. So we're a Broward County public school. We're not a private, we're licensed and insured, and we follow Broward County school, protocol. So class they don't come in. We get observed by my principal. We get observed by me. And so, yeah, I would want them to have that exposure and learn about that. However, if we fall under a different,
Wonderful. Well, you can teach them without right? Teach them without teaching them.
Correct. And that's what I do. I always tell, I say, I follow the rules. I follow, because I'm teaching them industry, right? So like we have to follow what industry standards are. So I do all those things, but I do have like full autonomy over the program. So I like that because I get to do a lot of stuff. But I do think it's important. That is something that within our county, when I talk to people that do what I do at other schools, we talk about that little piece that's like that missing piece for us, because as much as people don't like to be observed, necessarily it is a piece that we should have something where all of us are on the same page and we're all doing the same things, so that we know what's expected and we can teach that with the kids to the kids.
And that prepares them. It's another tool for them, right? They know this tool. Absolutely. I have it. There are lots of places that are using class and they're ahead of the game in that regard in knowing about class. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a missing piece for us, I think.
For your high schoolers that are really excited and get really just amped, right? Like they are your partner in just this excitement, this love of ECE. What kind of career tracks, or what kind of other training do you recommend for them to elevate their love, their interest, their knowledge on their journey?
So one of the parts of my program is for the state of Florida, we have all our industry certifications so that they leave being able to have, they have all their requirements to be able to be a preschool teacher. I provide any extras that the state provides, for us to be able to do. We allow them to do that as well. And I facilitate that for them. I also, again, we do our national CDA. So they leave with their credential, and proud to say that 100% of my students who complete all their requirements, who come in and they do everything that they're supposed to do, have attained their CDA since I started. So I'm super proud of that. And I also like those that are hungry, like I find a way for them, I look up resources. I tell them we look at colleges or like local, places for them to be able to advance in their career. I partner with a lot of the preschools in the area. I also partner with Broward County schools. So, I have a few students who are going to stay local. They're going to go to the college here close by. And I'm, working with them to get a job and make sure that they have those credentials so that they can be, start out as a teacher assistant and move on from there. So those that are hungry, they know where to go. They know that I will sit there and we'll map it out. I've sat there with them and helped them map out the courses that they need to take. And let's take a look at what's being offered and get you on a path. And I would say, I'm not your guidance counselor, but if I was your mom and I was looking at this, then this is where the path that I would take. But then I would send them to the right person, because I always am fearful of that. I don't want somebody saying oh, you told my daughter or you told me or whatever. This is what I would do. But I give them those resources, and anything that's free. Sometimes the state will offer free courses, literacy courses, trauma-informed care, any of those things. I always offer that to my students.
I love that. And that kind of leans into the question I was going to ask. It's almost like you're reading my mind, right? So aside from your students, you've been in this field, providing this excellent work and just pouring your heart into it. So in a mentorship type of fashion, what training would you recommend for a new educator to take advantage of? Or, where would they start? What would your recommendation be?
If you're right off the bat, I would always say, go get your degree. I would start with that. What are you passionate about? Early childhood, go further your education. Start there. From there, you just have to find your passion. So like, I'm like big into literacy. Get your reading endorsement, take classes in that, specialize in that, curriculum. There's so many things that you can do within the field of education to like go on from there. There's a lot out there, and you don't necessarily have to be a teacher. You can be a guidance counselor. You don't even have to work in a school, but you can be an advocate.
Okay. So you've shared a lot with me and the listeners, and I am just really curious. Like, I'd really like to know about a personal story about a high school student or a specific interaction that has just truly like warmed your heart and just made this, like, all the challenges worth it, right? Like, what is your story?
God, I have so many. I mean, really, going and moving from elementary to, I love elementary students. I love kindergarten. I mean, that is so like my passion, right? There's countless. Working with kids, like every year it's something different. So, I've had, just off the top of my head, I've had kids that come in, they're hard, high schoolers. They're just hard. And I had one girl who I was like riding her, like, you got to get your work done, hello, like whatever. And she just like one time looked at me and she goes, I know you don't like me. And I was like, what do you mean? Like that is like the one thing. And I was like, wait a minute, pause. Because one of the things that I learned when going from elementary to high school and just interacting with high school students is that they take things completely different. They receive things in a different way. So me being persistent and kind of like, riding her a little bit, she was like, this teacher doesn't like me. And I was like, oh my God, that's the furthest thing from my mind. And she was tough, not bad or anything like that. But, like sometimes they just don't want to do their work. And I want them to be successful. Like, I don't want to fail kids because you're not doing your work. And that just made me pivot. Like, this young lady is receiving my energy in a way that makes her think that she doesn't like me, that I don't like her. And it was so far from the truth. So I had to change the way I spoke to her. And so not the way that I spoke to her, but just how I engaged with her. And so from then I was like, oh, now you're my project. So, you said the words, and I wrangled her in. She was tough. It was hard for her to finish and pass the tests that, for the state. Cause that's like one of my things is like, you're going to leave with these industry certs. And I studied with her. I would work with her after school. I had her, create, like just get her stuff together. And if I could drag her across the stage with that industry cert, I'm going to do it. And I did. And at the end of the year, she just loved me. And she knew that I cared about her. I invested that extra time. I've had kids that tell me, I hate kids. There is no way I'm going to be a teacher. I like the kids in the preschool, they would say. I love the kids in the preschool, but when I'm out in public, God, they annoy me. And then what? As this is like, cause I have them for multiple years. By senior year, they're like, I think I want to be a teacher. I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. You came in here saying you didn't like kids and look at you. And they're like, I know. And those are the kids that like you remember that. I mean, I remember them all. They all have like something about them. It's like they keep me up at night, So I think about them a lot. I've had some kids that have really tough lives, things going on in their life that like are so impactful and like just, you can just see it, that getting through the day is difficult. And I think about one in particular, that impact that you have on them and just trying to get them to come to class and get through the day and just get through the school year and get, they come to my class, they don't go to others, and those are the kids that, one in particular that, she wants to go and be a teacher. She wants to make an impact. A lot of the kids tell me, I want to be a teacher, but I want to do like what you do. I want to work with the little ones, but also the high school students. They see that there's value there, So, I couldn't even just pick one. There's so many.
No, it was worth it. I appreciate all that. I do have a follow-up question. When you were talking about your first story with the girl, who said that you thought you didn't like her, what from that experience shifted how you approached or interacted with students moving forward, right?
Well, I always, it's like kids, they have their own interpretation of things. I always use like texting as an example. They look at we use like an app. It's called Remind.
Yeah.
I use that to like communicate with them. And they're always like, Ms. Covard, you are so aggressive. Like you put periods and it's like, whatever. They like interpret things so differently. And so I always try to give them a disclaimer. I'm like, listen, when I talk to you, when I text and I email, like sometimes I'm just matter of fact. Read the text, read the email, listen to what I'm telling you in like a happy voice. Like, I'm not going to speak to you. If I'm angry, you're going to know I'm angry. But if it's an everyday conversation, take it as like me just giving you information. And sometimes they tell me, I was like, and if you're thinking that I'm like a certain way, just ask me, because I want to make sure that you're clear with the tone, what my motives are and things like that. I just disclaimer it because tell them like, I'm old. I put periods at the end of my sentence. I'm sorry. Like I can't just send you a message and not put a period, even though for you, that's like, it's final. Like, if I'm like, whatever, that's not how it is. It's me saying, don't forget to turn in your homework, not don't forget to turn in your homework or something simple. So like
you're trying to,
I tell them, and you're going to make mistakes too. So I say, the nature of my class, like we're working with live human beings. So I take it very seriously. It's not, I don't know, pottery where if you break a pot, it's broken, it's a pot, you'll make another one. Like we can't make new ones, So I'm going to be a certain way when it comes to like the safety of our kids and like how we interact with them. So if I speak to you in a way, if I don't like something or if I, critique something, understand where it's coming from and that after it's done, we're like moving on. Like I'm not mad for the day. I don't hold grudges. They kind of like internalize that. So I try to like just remind them because I'm aware of it and I can tell by their body language instantly. Like if I don't want to use the word scold, but if I'm like, who did this? And then they're like, oh, it was me. Now she's mad at me for the day. And I'm like, literally, it's not that deep. I'm not mad at you for the rest of the day. I just need you to fix it. And then we're moving on.
So you're just really proactive with the intent of your messaging. So that way they're prepared, right? And they don't take it.
Yeah, like just in general. And they get used to it. They always tell me, like in the beginning, their first like encounter with me, like the first, few months, they're like, oof, I'm high energy. I am direct, and so they're usually like, oh goodness. And then, once they know me, they're like, oh, it's just, she'll be all right.
You are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
It was great hearing why many high schoolers are choosing to join early education as a career path, but also how you've been mentoring them in their journeys and hearing how you're inspiring the next generation of teachers and leaders. Listeners, you can find today's episodes and transcript on our website, teachstone.com/podcast. Stay tuned for our bonus episode live from Miami at Interact Class Summit. And as always, behind great leading and teaching are powerful interactions. Let's build that culture together. Thanks again, Deborah.
Thank you.